Hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining me back on my channel, Hierarchy of Reads. My name is Tiffany and I hope that you're all doing well, all things considered. Today I'm just here to share with you the books that I read in the month of April, as well as to share the books that I'm currently reading. Now this wrap up is actually going to be pretty short because I only read 4 books in the month of April, and none of them do I have a lot to really speak on or to say about. But the first book that I did read was The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, and it was translated by, oh goodness, Stephen Snyder. And I ended up reading this book 3 out of 5 stars. I initially started this book as a buddy read, and then the person I was reading it with didn't really like it enough to kind of continue reading it. I, however, did enjoy it for the most part. However, I thought it left a lot lacking, at least for me. This book was very interesting in that it can kind of take on whatever colors the reader really wants it to take on and kind of form to whatever the reader wants it to be. For me, that was a book about the systematic desensitization to government authority and how that kind of leads to a sense of learned helplessness within the people. And I also thought it was a really interesting take on loss and even potentially trauma. I was definitely interested in the way that this book was written, and I thought it was frustrating at times, but also quite intriguing. The next book that I finished in the month of April was a poetry collection titled My Father Was a Toltec and Selected Poems by Ana Castillo. And unfortunately, I did not enjoy this, although I think that really has to do more with my base knowledge and understanding. It's very clear in this book that Ana Castillo really references much about her culture and her culture's history, in the people, and it's clear that I didn't quite pick up on a lot of those references. I picked them up as far as like I understood that she was referencing something much deeper and that she was trying to do something much deeper than what I understood it to be. But I also recognize that I don't really know what she was exactly trying to do a lot of the time because I don't know the history, I don't know the culture, I don't know the people. And so that was kind of unfortunate. And so that kind of led to me not really enjoying this poetry collection as much as I think I could have had I been aware or knowledgeable of those references. It kind of made me sad because I read reviews of this poetry collection before I bought it. I had found it in a used bookstore one day a long time ago, and I looked it up on Goodreads as I was browsing the store, and people had a lot of good things to say about it, but it wasn't really my cup of tea, unfortunately. The next book that I finished in the month of April is A Monster Calls, a novel by Patrick Ness, and I really enjoyed this book. This is one of those books that everybody on YouTube or everybody on Goodreads, raves about it, and I kind of suspected that it might have been overdone or overpraised, and for about 90% of this book, I thought that was going to be my takeaway. I thought I was gonna walk away from the book like, okay, yeah, it was all right, but I don't really get what the big fuss was about. But that last 10% of the book was just amazing to me. For those of you who aren't familiar, this book really talks about a young boy's loss and how he copes with that. And it really touches on a number of profound topics like death and dying and mortality and what it means to lose somebody that we love and what it means for ourselves and our lives going forward. And I really liked the way that this book dealt with that, especially, like I said, that last 10% was just beautiful. And so yeah, I really enjoyed this. I ended up rating it 4 out of 5 stars. So yes, highly recommend. And the last book that I read in the month of April is Darkness Visible, a Memoir of Madness by William Styron. In this book, William Styron is writing about his experiences with a very dark and profound depression. And I did enjoy this book in that, he's a beautiful writer, and I think he does a really good job of kind of explaining the cognitive processes and the way that one feels during depression in a way that I hadn't currently read before or hadn't ever read before. And so I did appreciate that. It was also interesting to see his perspective and thoughts on the research on depression and information about depression at the time. So yes, although this was very sad in many ways, I did enjoy hearing his perspective on his experience with depression. And those were all of the books that I read in the month of April. Now, I am currently reading a few different books, 2 nonfiction, 1 fiction. And the 2 nonfiction that I'm currently reading, the first one is Mishima, a biography by John Nathan. I haven't made much progress since the beginning of April, and so I'm hoping to get back into this. I'm currently on page 73, and I really wanted to enjoy this book. I really wanted to love it, and I do find it very interesting, and I'm definitely going to continue reading it. However, it has become increasingly clear to me how biased an author John Nathan is and how biased a biographer. It really seems as though John Nathan is imposing this idea of who Mishima is onto him, and constantly trying to twist the narrative to fit that idea of who he is. And it's something that is really frustrating to me, and it's something that while I'm reading, I can see a lot of the assumptions he's making. One thing that occurred to me while reading this book, and I'm not entirely sure if I really think this, but it's something that's kind of, you know, in the back of my mind right now as I'm going through, is that it kind of seems as though John Nathan takes for granted the fact that he might know perhaps more about Japanese culture or the Japanese language than some people do, than probably many people who are reading this book. And so he kind of uses that in order to give himself unwarranted levels of authority and confidence about what Yukio Mishima is really thinking, or what he really means when he's writing. Sometimes it seems to me that he's making pretty grand assumptions that aren't supported. But again, I don't really know, because I don't know much about, you know, the Japanese literary scene, and I don't really know much about his life besides this book. So that'll be something that I will be interested in kind of learning going forward. But yeah, so far I'm enjoying getting to know more about Yukio Mishima, but I'm really not enjoying John Nathan's take on things. The next book that I am reading is Eichmann in Jerusalem, A Report on the Banality of Evil by Hannah Arendt. And when I picked up this book and started reading it, I had no idea that there was so much controversy surrounding it, and that so many people took such deep offense to Hannah Arendt's ideas and thoughts on the trial, and her kind of general philosophies. I'm hardly into the book at all, so I really can't say anything about that, but yeah, I'm really interested to read this book and see what I think about her ideas and her philosophies and how she kind of portrays the trial and the things she says. And finally, the last book that I am currently reading is Wildcat, Book 1 of the Caledon Saga by J.P. Harker. As I mentioned in my last vlog, the author sent this to me in exchange for a review. And so I'm not very far into it, and I'm hoping to get this finished probably by the end of the month. So that's all the bookish stuff that I've been up to in the last month or so. I'd love to know anything that you read last month that you particularly enjoyed or that you think that I might like. I do look forward to seeing you in my next video. I do intend for it to be either a tag video or a booktuber shout out video. But either way, until then, I hope that you are well.